Okay guys, so in this video we're checking out the Radiomaster TX16S, and I know that a lot of you guys have been considering getting the jumper T16 Pro and wondering what the differences are. We're going to cover that in this video. For the most part, there's a lot of similarities between this radio and the T16 Pro, but also a lot of differences. I'm going to point those out. However, if you don't feel like watching the whole video and you just want my conclusion, I can tell you that if you are considering upgrading your radio and are in that sort of $100, $150 price range, this is definitely the one to consider over the Jumper T16 Pro based on the improvements and the differences. And basically this is basically what the Jumper T16 Pro should have been from the beginning. Anyways, go ahead and jump right into the video and power this up, and let's see what this thing can do.
Welcome to OpenTX.
So just a standard disclaimer here, this is a pre-production unit, I suppose you could say. It's pretty close to production. It's obviously a review unit. They've customized it here with my name here on the etched on the buttons here, the system button and the model button. However, they've done a lot of the setup already. Hopefully the production units will come set up with all the settings properly set up and basically in the software. I know a lot of jumper radios didn't have that, so a lot of work had to be done to get the radio set up, but this one seems to be perfect. Like, all the little things that you would want to set up out of the box are obviously ready to go, and that's a good thing, and I'm hoping that that's going to be the case for the actual production models. So this radio did come in a pretty nice foam case, very well protected. So you know, if you're worried about shipping damage like some of the jumper radios have probably had, this one is probably not going to have that problem because the foam box is very, very sturdy, and it's actually a good place to store this because all the switches and stuff will be nice and secure, as well as the gimbals. You also get some other things in the box. You get this USB-C cable for charging and also for your simulator. And they include this keychain here, which is like a replica of the radio. Pretty nice. No lanyard is included, and so I know a lot of jump radios come with a lanyard, but I think most people will probably have their own lanyard or something custom that they would want to buy. But just like on the jumper, this is fairly well balanced here, unlike on the Tyrannus where you have to use an adapter to balance the lanyard hook. This is not a problem on this series of radios. So on the surface it would appear that this is largely the same as the T16, and the thing with the T16 is it came out in sort of phases. So when the original T16 came out, the multi-protocol module was in the external bay and not internal like on the Pro, and they made little iterative changes over time and over most of 2019. And so it was kind of hard to know which version you were going to get when you bought it from a retailer, and that was one of the major issues of the whole Jumper T16 series, is that you didn't necessarily know which version you were going to get and the one that you got in the box, what kind of problems it might particularly have. And I think that's one of the reasons why Radiomaster here split off from Jumper. There's actually, I guess, two guys that started Jumper, and one of the guys went off and started off this new company called Radiomaster because of a lot of the issues and sort of the growing pains of the original Jumper T16. So that's kind of where the origins of this radio came from, is basically from that sort of split off, and you know, they've kind of waited to put this radio out to sort of refine it and get all the little bugs worked out before releasing it, which is actually a good thing. And it's going to be better because then once you get this radio, you're going to know that it's going to be pretty solid. It's not going to have a lot of issues. You don't have to worry about any particular future problems. Of course, I haven't been using this for a long time, so I can't tell you anything about longevity, but I can just tell you that they've taken all of the sort of little problems and lessons learned from the T16 and refined it and corrected them, and this is the result, and this is actually basically what the T16 should have been from the beginning. So the outer casing obviously is pretty similar here. You got your grips on the side. The grips on the back here are bigger on the Radiomaster. These are flat on the T16. The back battery bay is much larger on the Radiomaster. The one on the T16 is a little bit smaller. I have here a two-cell lithium-ion battery. It's plugged into the balance port in the back there. Just come with a 18615 tray if you want to put that in here instead. But you can also use 21700 batteries as well, or lithium or LiPo battery. They don't recommend using a LiFePO battery because if you do use an internal charger, that will destroy your LiFePO battery because of the voltage differences. So the only batteries that are supported are 2S lithium ion batteries or LiPo batteries. Now the switches here up on top are, I believe, are all exactly the same. All these are 3-position switches on the top here, and then you have a 3-position switch here on the shoulder, and then a 2-position switch for the longer one back here, a momentary switch back here, and another 3-position switch here. You have these dials that have actually detents that actually stay centered. It's still fairly loose, but it will center both of them, as well as the sliders over here. They do have a detent in the center that will hold it, but it's still, once you kind of nudge it past the notch there, it's fairly loose. So I'm not sure if you can open it up and tighten it, but I never use these things, but if you guys are flying airplanes and have pan and tilts, for example, this could be something that you might want to adjust. The gimbals here are Hall sensor gimbals. These are, I think these are metal. These remind me of the ones on the Tyrannus Special Edition. Hall sensor gimbals, full-size gimbals here. I believe that they feel like the same travel. So for those of you guys that want the full travel distance here for the resolution, you're going to definitely have that on this one, and it's super smooth. These feel like the Tyrannus Special Edition gimbals, and yeah, if you want that full travel, this is definitely going to be it. No issues with that. And this radio does come in 3 different versions. I forgot to mention. So this one here is the middle version. This one comes with the Hall sensor gimbals and the touchscreen. The standard, so this one's like $129. So the standard edition or the low budget version edition is at $99. That's the entry level. Comes with standard gimbals, not Hall sensor gimbals. So they're going to look different than this one, feel a little bit different. And it comes with a standard screen, not a touch screen. So I can't actually demonstrate the touchscreen function yet because the OpenTX doesn't support it. It's like we're waiting for 2.4. This is running 2.2.8. There is a way to test the touchscreen. I'll show you that later in the software. But this one does have. I tested it. It does actually have the touchscreen. And then there's a third version that has all these features, but it also includes the TBS Crossfire Micro module, and that one's coming in at another $60 more for $189. I don't know if that version comes with a receiver or not. If it does come with a receiver and the Crossfire Micro module, that's a pretty good deal for the bundle for $60 more. So if you're going to be getting this for Crossfire, then I would actually recommend getting that version. But I think this is going to be this one here is going to be the most common version. And when OpenTX 2.4 comes out later, you'll have the touchscreen functions, and I think the layout of the screen, everything is going to be a little bit different because they're going to actually make it touchscreen friendly, so the buttons and stuff are going to be bigger. So if you don't feel like using the buttons and the scroll wheel and you want to use a touchscreen instead for certain interface elements later, I'll have videos later, of course, on that when OpenTX 2.4 is released. So the trim buttons here are the same. The little grill here is a little bit different on the speaker, and the speaker actually sounds nicer on this one. In addition to the vibration motor is actually nicer in this version versus the jumper. The jumper vibration motor is pretty harsh, and this one's actually quite nice. It doesn't feel like it's gonna like shake your hand off. And then you have these 6 buttons here for this 6-position switch as well. This is the same function as before. Just the button shape is a little bit different. I think the LED is a different color. And then the main difference down here is you have a 4th button instead of, so you have 3 buttons here. They just added a page back button, which is a little hard to see. Right there. Okay, here we go. So this button here is the page back button. So normally on the Jumper T16, if you page forward, then this goes forward, but then if you want to go back, you have to long press the page forward button, that'll go back. But they actually added another button here for page back. So this will be useful once you get into the system menu. So if you go into the system menu here, you can now page forward and page back. So I think they moved the back button over here. You can see it says return, and then they moved the model button onto this side over here. The scroll wheel is greatly improved. It's metal now. It's not as notchy. I don't know if you prefer that or not, but it feels super nice. And the pin in here is metal as well. So I know that a lot of people had their scroll wheels break on the T16 because of a defect in the sort of design of this scroll wheel. But this one is much improved. Now, when you press down on the scroll wheel, it's easier to press in the center and sort of down at the bottom here, but at the top, you can't really press down. I think that's kind of where the pin is. So don't press down over there if you're using this to enter. Press down at the bottom here or the middle, just something to make a note of. Also on these buttons over here, if you press on the left side of the button, you don't get any feedback. You have to actually press in the sort of the middle or over on the right hand side. So something to keep in mind. I think it's just the way the button is laid out here on the molding. It can't quite get any sort of traction here on the left side of the button. So something I was trying to press down over here and I was not getting any button clicks. We had to press down in the center or towards the right side. Okay, so over here on top we've got the antenna, and for the internal module, the antenna now is not removable, as you can see, and that could be pro or con depending on your point of view. I don't really particularly care either way. It's fine. It's not like we're going to remove it and use a different antenna. But if you do want to do that, then you'll have to mod this to use an upgraded third-party antenna if that's what your goal is. Top here, if you pop this door off, you're going to have the the USB-C port here for connecting to your computer, and for if you want to use this for a simulator, for example. That's nice. It's up here and it's not a mini USB anymore. And then you have the sort of the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack there for your trainer port if you want to connect this radio up to a trainer radio. And then on the bottom you have another door that doesn't exist on the T16. And if you pop this off here, you've got a micro SD card slot, which includes this radio includes a 256 megabyte micro SD card for saving your models and other settings and stuff. That's nice. And then you have a USB-C port here for charging, and this is the charging port, and this is for charging the internal battery. You have these additional UARTs here. There's looks like a 5-pin over here and a 4-pin over here. These aren't documented anywhere. I think this is going to be for future functions. But if you're wondering if you could use this like S port for updating your receivers, that's not the case. You're still going to have to use the pins in the JR module port back here to actually do your receiver upgrades, if that's the case. If you want to flash your receivers, you'll have to do via the GR module bay. Okay, so I just want to show you guys real quick the touchscreen function. So you can just long press the system button here, and you're going to go over to one of these last pages. That's hardware. And you're going to scroll down, and you're going to click on analogs. And on this page, if you have the touchscreen, you can see here, you can, touch panel thing comes out here, and then you can drag this little X around with your finger so that you know that the touchscreen is working. And again, the current version of the OpenTX that's on here doesn't support the touchscreen and any of the interface. You'll have to wait until version 2.4 comes out, and not exactly sure when that's going to be. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers the radio and all the differences. You know, again, my conclusion here is if we were considering getting the T16 Pro, then this one is actually the better choice in my opinion. Now, I wouldn't characterize this as a premium radio. This is actually a budget radio. It's like, you know, $99 for the entry level and $129 for this version here. You know, compared to a lot of other radios that you would categorize as premium, like say Futaba or Spectrum radio, even sort of like the Taranis Special Edition. You know, those are definitely going to be well above $200. But you know, it doesn't it would be fair to say this is a premium feeling radio. I mean, obviously this is still plasticky here. There's some metal pieces, but it doesn't feel cheap. It feels solid. It's not creaky when you kind of twist it in the hand here. So it's, the build quality is very nice, and they've addressed a lot of the shortcomings of the designs of the T16. I forgot to mention, one of the major design shortcomings was on inside here. So if you open it up and you look inside, the ribbon cables for all the switches and the gimbals and everything that initially people thought were kind of an upgrade actually turned out to be actually a big problem, where the ribbon cables will actually get loose, and then all of a sudden you'd stop losing your function of your switch, for example, just stop working, and you would have to actually actually open up the whole radio and then reseat that ribbon cable. That it has gone now, so they have gone back to the traditional 3 wires for all the connections and solder points, and they're using silicon wires and everything in the back there. So that is another thing that you know, they've learned of all the sort of shortcomings and problems and little things that, you know, glitches that were causing customers problems with the T16, and they fixed all those in here, especially things like the scroll wheel, for example, and just little annoying things about the radio. And so this is basically a refined sort of a final version of the T16. If you're considering getting the T16, this is the one to get instead, in my opinion. So I'm going to have a separate video on how to set up a basic model. I'm going to do that because it's just better for YouTube search algorithm, and that will, because I know a lot of people ask me to make a video on that, so I'm just going to make a separate video on how to set up a model for this particular radio, and so for future people searching for that, they'll have that, and I'm not going to include that at the end of this video because it's, you know, I'll basically, I was doing that before, and I sent them a link to like a video with, you know, just a little thing that they were looking for, and then they were complaining like, well, why are you making me watch a 20-minute video and I only need like the 5 minutes? So that's why I'm making a separate video for that, if you guys are wondering. So that'll be coming a little bit later. Anyways, gonna do it for this video. If you guys have any questions about this, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.